Minister of the Referendum Campaign for Fine Gael, the Minister for Agriculture, Simon Coveney, with us. I wouldn't expect you, Minister, to tell us what is in Plan B, but could you provide some reassurance, please, that we do have a government plan in the event of Greece leaving the euro?
Well, look, I mean, what Ireland has is a Plan A, which is working at the moment. We're meeting all of the targets that are being set for ourselves, and very much part of that plan is to pass the Stability Treaty at the end of this month, because that will provide us with funding certainty into the future. I mean, at the end of next year, we will come out of our current bailout programme, and we'll either have to raise money on the markets as is normal, or if we're unable to do that for whatever reason, we will be able to access an ESM fund, and that is why, because of all of the turmoil at the moment in countries like Greece and the uncertainty in other countries, we're determined to try and bring certainty and stability to the Irish economy by doing what we say we do.
How can you say about certainty and stability, given the complete chaos that there has been going on in Europe for 2 years now, given that every initiative that has been undertaken by governments of the European Union has failed to provide any certainty and stability? How can you persuade people that voting yes to this limited part of the jigsaw will give us stability and certainty?
Look, I mean, I have never said, and no one on the yes side is saying that this treaty is going to solve all of our problems. I know Declan Ganley will be on in a few minutes talking about the need for Ireland to get a much better deal in relation to bank debt, and he's right on that. But I don't think he's going about it the right way. We have to do a lot of things to put our country back on an even keel. But one of the things that will help us do that is this treaty. What this treaty does is it signs us up to responsible budgeting in the future that will reduce the risk of a boom and bust economy like we've had for the last 30 years, where we've seen overspending and then an economic collapse having to be rebuilt again. And it'll also give us certainty in terms of accessing an emergency fund should we need it. And they are two good things that are positive for Ireland that will help us do what you and everybody else wants us to do, which is to provide steady growth and investment in Ireland over the next 3 to 4 years. The alternative is that we decide to reject the Stability Treaty and create all sorts of unnecessary uncertainty around where Ireland will get its future funding. I mean, if you're serious about ensuring that Ireland is insulated, or at least is as insulated as it can be from whatever may or may not happen in Greece, well then you want to reduce the areas of uncertainty. And one of the ways of doing that is by voting yes at the end of this month. I mean, there's no downside to voting yes. We've already committed to responsible budgeting anyway in the European Union, and now we're enshrining that in this treaty.
Well,
and most importantly, like I say, we will be able to access an emergency fund should we need it. I mean, whatever happens to Greece, and unfortunately what's happening there is a tragedy at the moment, we have to ensure that we do everything we can as a government to ensure that Ireland meets its own targets, that we put our own shop in order, if you like. And the treaty is just a part of that process, but it's a very important part.
Okay, I'm going to go to Declan Ganley, who has joined the no side over the weekend and come forward publicly. Limited downside to saying yes, but enormous potential risks in saying no. Why should we gamble by saying no when we don't know what would happen as a result?
Well, I wouldn't agree with your supposition, Matt, that there's limited downside to voting yes. We're giving away the last bargaining chip that we have. This government was given a mandate to go and get a deal on bank debt. They have failed to do it, and it is therefore up to the Irish people to reinforce that message and make sure that we get listened to. We cannot continue with this millstone of bank debt around our necks.
Sorry, what has bank debt got to do with anything? Is this bank debt not just another red herring, just like some people on the left are saying vote no to avoid property taxes and water charges? What has the bank debt got to do with what we're being asked to vote on?
The bank debt has got everything to do with it because it is the problem. Now, this treaty is a placebo, and it's a placebo designed for German tabloid editors so that Angela Merkel can say that she got somebody to sign up to something that's already in the Maastricht Treaty in terms of the rules. And we pretty much stuck by those. Germany and France were the first two countries to break the rules of the Maastricht Treaty. Therefore, if we're going to have a formula for Europe, and goodness knows we need one that deals with the core cancer at the heart of the European financial system, which is that of bank insolvency. It so happens that Ireland has a hugely disproportionate share of failed bank debt that has now been sat on the shoulders of our taxpayers. We cannot recover. We can't do it with all the best will in the world, with the best government in the world. We cannot recover while carrying that bank debt. It has not been addressed. Furthermore, this treaty formula, we already know that this treaty isn't working. Look what's happening, this treaty formula isn't working. Look what's happening in Greece. The minister points to the ESM as though it's some sort of lifeboat that we can get onto. There isn't going to be enough money in this ESM to bail everybody out. If Greece goes, and it will be a disaster, not just economically for Europe, but politically for Europe, if they let Greece go. Spain will probably go next. You open up risks in Belgium, France, Italy, the German banking system. This needs to be dealt with.
But then how could voting no help us in those circumstances? Why will the European Central Bank, which has steadfastly refused to help us in relation to the bank debt over the last 2 years, suddenly at a time when its own resources are going to be so dramatically called upon because of what's happening throughout continental Europe, suddenly give us a deal on our bank debt?
The ECB and its policy has failed. It's been a disaster.
And you expect it to admit to that?
Yes, I do. Well, you know
why would it? What incentive does it have to suddenly to give Ireland what it wants in the bank debt?
Because it is plain for everybody to see that their policy has failed. There is a myopia in Brussels think that is continuing with this failed policy. Somebody needs to deliver a message. It so happens that we are the country that's having a vote on this issue. We need to send a message. And it's the most pro-European thing that we can do. This European project is in huge danger right now of going off a precipice, of failing. Because if the euro fails, the European project fails.
Minister Simon Coveney, why don't we turn around and tell the Europeans that we've had enough of this messing for the last couple of years? It's all gone wrong. What you're doing is as stupid as what our previous government did in introducing the bank guarantee in September 2008, that a new way is required, and let's do it a different way.
Look, can I just first of all respond to a number of things that Declan said? Because, I mean, up until 48 hours ago, Declan wasn't taking a position on whether he would vote yes or vote no, and he's now some kind of adamant no campaigner saying that there's no alternative. Right? The position is it does not make sense to use this treaty as a bargaining chip, because it's not a good bargaining chip. By voting no, we don't increase the chances of Ireland getting a better deal on our bank debt. I agree with him that bank debt is a huge problem for Ireland, and we need to get a better deal on it, and that process is underway. But I mean, by voting no to this, it doesn't make it easier to get that deal. And I think that the government, and in particular the Minister for Finance, who are in the middle of this negotiation, are best placed to decide on the best strategy to get a good result for Ireland, rather than somebody from the outside. And so I don't disagree.
So do we not need fresh thinking, perhaps? Because
yes,
clearly over the last 15 months that you've been in power, you've been able to get virtually nowhere with the other European governments.
So that's not true. I mean, there has been a whole series of changes to Ireland's bailout programme that have been good for Ireland.
Minor changes, aren't they?
No, they weren't minor changes. They were very significant changes in many cases that have saved us a very significant amount of money. From reducing our interest rates in terms of the money that we access to forcing significant burden sharing on junior bondholders and banks to the tune of about €4 billion. To getting a deferral. Hang on a second, you asked me the question. To get a deferral on our promissory note payment of nearly €3 billion this year, pending a longer term solution to that problem. So this is a negotiation that remains underway. The question that we need to ask ourselves is, do we help Ireland or do we damage Ireland's future by voting yes or no on the 31st?
Okay, I'm going to go back to Declan Ganley because I'm trying to get the time balance up between the two of you.
Is that the most important issue for Ireland at the moment is that we know where we're going. We know where our funding is going to come from, and we know what our budgets are going to look like in the future. That is the kind of certainty that will ensure that we keep investment coming into Ireland, unlike what's happening in Greece at the moment, which is a tragic example of what happens when an international community loses faith in a country.
Declan Ganley, you're a businessman who invests in many countries. Do you not see the advantage in what has been outlined by the Minister there, that at least for businesses who create jobs, that they know exactly what the Irish strategy is?
Well, let's hope that they're not looking too closely at this strategy, because right now the minister's down in Cove selling tickets for the Titanic, and this is not going to solve Ireland's problem. It's not going to solve Europe's problem. We need debt federalisation across Europe, of sovereign debt across Europe. We need a purging of the insolvent bank debt. We need it now. Every day that it's left unaddressed, things are getting worse. The idea that taking out another credit card when we're already drowning in debt is somehow going to make things better is an illusion, and it's wrong to promote that idea. And the idea that this particular treaty formula is in any way in Ireland's interest is a myth. It's not. We need a deal on bank debt. We have to have it. Unfortunately, the government has failed in delivering upon the mandate that it got in the general election.
But is that its fault? Is that not down to the absolute stubbornness and the fact that the European Central Bank and European governments cannot be persuaded that they're going down the wrong road? There have been some people saying on principle we will not vote yes because we will not have a gun put to our head. But what happens if you have somebody with a gun to your head who's mad enough to actually pull the trigger?
They haven't got anything in the gun because they all have the same problem. And some of them have a problem that's on a similar scale or not dissimilar scale to Ireland, like Spain, for example. Once it's revealed what is exactly at the bottom of Spain's banking punch bowl, I think the alarm bells are going to go off very loudly indeed. That the ESM cannot do it. We need to restore healthy markets. The only way to do that is purge Europe's banking system of its insolvency. We can catalyse that by voting no on May the 31st.
We're going to leave it there. I had started with Minister Simon Coveney, so I'm finishing with Declan Ganley. Thank you, both of you, for taking the time to join us on the programme this evening. And don't forget, we have our major debate coming live from the Irish Life Centre on Thursday from 4:30.